Greetings, friends. This is Thunder Hands. I don't really know what I'm going to name this today because I'm going to just kind of let spirit come through me and just say what things that maybe need to be heard. So maybe I'll just call it the Wisdom Ramble or the Wisdom and Enlightenment Ramble or something like that. First thoughts that come to mind, like right now I'm thinking tribal. I'm thinking about how important it would be, or how important it should be, to each individual to think in a tribal manner right now. Because I'm thinking that's what it could come to. Factions, small units. And I'm also thinking about how tribal is more than a race. Of course, tribal is associated with many indigenous people, including the ones of what we call the United States of America, or America, which is really Turtle Island. But it's so important, I think, right now to think tribally. That's one thing I wanted to say. People, in other words, learning how to live with complete self-sufficiency, maybe with others, preferably with others, small groups of like 6 to 8 people in your neighborhood that you know that you can trust, that you should band with, just in case some kind of scenario works out to where there's a breakdown of the infrastructure and you need to think more about survival in a different way than you do now. So I think it would be good to think tribal and have discussions and come from the heart with your discussions with your fellow man. Talk about what you need to do to be prepared for any contingency that might arise. And you know, then that train of thought right there leads us into nature and our oneness with nature. Maybe I'll call this oneness with nature. I don't know. I'm just rambling here. And I hope that whatever I'm saying is something that will strike a chord with you. I'm always thinking about, well, I guess you could say getting outside that paradigm, or thinking outside the envelope, or thinking outside the box. You have to do that because otherwise you'll get caught up in the fray. You'll get caught up in the fray of everyday activity and never get anywhere, just spinning your wheels. So that's what it means to be awake. A lot of people are walking around in sleepwalk mode. I've said this before. And it's because they're so hung up in the duality, the unreality of life. It's like that old saying, can't see the forest for the trees. They're not concentrating on the big picture. Another thing I think I want to talk about is how we treat our fellow man, and that goes to the tribal thing too. And I've talked about this before, but I guess this bears repeating, is that we need to care about our fellow man. We need to be tribal about it. We need to look at our fellow man as somebody who is part of us. And everybody's part of us, whether they're got some strange agenda or not. Maybe that's why we're here to straighten that all out, some of us. I suppose, some like myself, I feel like it's a purpose for me, or a calling, to try to dispense wisdom or enlightenment or knowledge or intellect or whatever you want to call it. You can call it anything you want. And I'm just on this streaming consciousness right now. I'm just talking about anything that comes to my mind. How about spiritual practices? How about ritual? How about practicing some things that can gather the energy unto yourself? Some Tai Chi, or some Qigong, or some yoga, or some just breathing, or just thinking in the right manner, or doing some kind of meditation where you have a one-pointed concentration, or making life a meditation. Making your life a meditation. Mindfulness. Asking who you are really. Who are you really? We all have a name, we all have a certain pattern that we go through in life, certain beliefs, certain habits, but who are we? Are we that really? No. That's just a manifestation of all this thing that's been fed into this computer and is pouring out. And what you got to try to do is rise above and see what's pouring out, or see what's coming in. Try to feel the energy. Okay, and some rituals are just so beautiful. Like, I'll tell you a ritual or a practice that the Taoists use, that you can use. Just one thing, and it's so powerful if you really do this. The practice is called smiling down. Smiling down. And what you do is, when you smile, right, you get that same kind of smiling eyes. You know what I'm saying? The smiling eyes. Kind of like what I have right now. And it's love, and you're smiling, and so it's happiness and joy, right? And what you do is you close your eyes and you picture them as smiling eyes, and you smile down into your physical and spiritual being. You'll smile down to your heart, send it love. You're smiling with your eyes. It's a powerful exercise. You have to try it. Just pretend like you're laughing with your eyes, sending love and laughter. You don't have to be smiling with your mouth necessarily. Take a deep breath and then just smile down into your body, your heart, your stomach, anywhere, your body. And say, relax. Send a relaxing, because that's what it is really. When you're smiling down, you're sending love and relaxing all these different parts of you that maybe never consciously, or you don't consciously send love to. So that's just one practice that you can try. And if you look a little bit more into meditative practices and yoga and that, you can take little things like that and incorporate them into your everyday life, and it becomes a ritual, but a natural ritual. It's not something where you gotta, light bonfires or, shoot off fireworks. Not that kind of ritual. It's an internal thing, okay? And maybe it's a celebration of life, taking intervals in your life or in your spaces in your life to celebrate life. And sometimes just thinking about the energy in the atmosphere and bringing it into yourself, bringing it in and relaxing. Because the Hopi people would open up their energy centers, and one of the energy centers, I believe they called it Kopavi, at the top of the head, the crown chakra. Most people don't even feel that. I mean, I feel it all the time. The third eye, it's like a buzzing feeling up there, a tingling, like somebody's softly, softly running their hands over your hair, like a presence. That means the top of your head's open. So in order to do that, you have to open up the energy centers, and the Hopi people knew about this. And the Hopi people said that that was the way you talked to the Creator, which is a metaphor for connecting to that higher divine self. Above the physical manifestation of this wonderful huge auric field around you, which is an energy pattern. And we are all energy, and it's all about energy. So when we have these certain realizations as we walk through life, we have more control. And sometimes in Taoist thought, having control means having no control. I know that sounds like a kind of a strange concept, but have you ever noticed that when you let go trying to get something, sometimes it comes right to you? So sometimes you just have to let go of what you're grasping for and let it just come to you. Get a picture in your mind of what you want. Don't grasp at it, but let it just come to you. So those are some things that you can think about on a spiritual level. And when you get into the tribal thing, it should be all about spirituality, excuse me. It should be about your oneness with the earth, and your oneness with your fellow man, and your oneness with integrating the parts of yourselves so they become one and balanced. So anyway, those are a few things that I thought I would talk about. Try to keep things a little bit more positive and try to throw some information out there that might help some people in times if they get tough, or just for, you know, learning something new that might help you. I strongly suggest that people meditate. I strongly suggest that people do ritual. I strongly suggest that people talk to the Creator in whatever way that they feel is proper for them. For me, it's nature. For me, it's every time I go out in nature, I talk to nature telepathically. I communicate. I acknowledge that the trees have auras and energy fields just like we do, and that the ground has an immense energy field, Mother Earth, and that the sky has an energy field, and creatures, all of these different aspects of creatures that come down, hawks and birds and even the wind in the trees. I see people walk through the park and they're not even aware of their surroundings. I mean, they're like walking through the park and here they are in this beautiful setting, and yet their mind's either plugged into the iPods on their head, listening to some music instead of listening to nature's music, and they're looking straight ahead and they're just walking, and they're missing so much. They're missing the color patterns, that you can get with a special kind of vision that I call splatter vision, where you hold your arms out to the side of your head, straight out, and you wiggle your fingers so that you can see your fingers wiggling out of both eyes, out of the corners of both eyes, peripheral vision at the same time. Okay, so these fingers are out here and you're seeing them, but you're still looking ahead with kind of this soft gaze, and you kind of go into this consciousness. It's called tracking consciousness, splatter vision. It's an old Apache thing. Pretty soon you're hearing a 360, your other senses become acclimated to your eyes, or tune in with your eyes, and you start hearing in 360-degree sound. And you know right where that cricket is, or right where that bird's coming from. But do these people that are walking through the park do this? No, they just stare straight ahead with blinders on. Oh yeah, I'm going down the sidewalk there. Ain't that fun? They're not awake. And they'll walk right under a tree that if they looked up, they would see that there's a dead branch up there just barely hanging. I call them widow makers, because if they fall on you, they'll kill you. So these people are walking along and I'm looking at this dead branch up there and I'm going, man, these people don't even see this. Well, that's how people are in life. That's how people are in life. So you got to be tribal. Do you think an Apache would walk through that park and not notice every movement, every smell, or any great scout or tracker? Do you think they're going to walk through that park and just look around at the other people sometimes and listen to their iPod? Is that what an Apache would do to become accustomed to their environment? So if people aren't even to the level of noticing their surroundings, then how are they going to ever be tribal? And it's necessary that we become tribal, that we get back to learning how to be in small bands of people living with nature, doing ritual, doing meditation. I just got back from a nice trip to Superstition Mountains in Arizona. And I went from the city from a city dwelling which was right above a freeway in Southern California with cars rush, rush, honk, honk, beep, beep, sirens on and off, all that stuff, to a setting beneath the Superstition Mountains that was magnificent. I mean, it was like stillness, except for nature. The birds flying by, the hawks, the doves, the rabbits hopping by, but you could actually hear them. You couldn't hear that in a city. Hardly ever. Not next to a freeway. And what a joy it was for me to return to a place I was raised and tracked as a kid. Climbed every mountain around there, Apache Trail, all that stuff. So when I got there, I felt the spirits of the land, and the Apache were all around there, and that's where I was raised. I'm not Apache. I'm of a different tribe, but from the east, but I was brought to Arizona at a very young age, like 6 months old, and mingled with and grew up with the other tribes and learned some of their customs. And one of my favorites is the Apache because of their stealth. The other is the Hopi because of their incredible philosophical, metaphysical understanding. Of course, I'm not saying other tribes didn't have this too. But the Hopi really stand out to me as kind of a root race where a lot of other things and tribes people sprung up from, and a strong connection to the East. So when I think back on my youth, I realize that being tribal isn't always about blood, or it isn't always, I mean, I can say it's definitely not just about blood or color of skin or whatever. Being tribal and thinking about the old ways of the indigenous ones and the ancient ones and the ancestral ones, and having that same heart connection and that same spiritual connection to Earth goes beyond blood or skin or any of that stuff. It's a spirit. Okay. And I can honestly say that some tribal people don't have that spirit. It's covered up. And I can honestly say that some people that are white or yellow or whatever have that spirit. So it doesn't have anything to do, like Fool's Crow said this too, one of the great Lakota medicine men. It's not about color, it's not about blood, it's about a spirit. Okay. And you're either tuned into that spirit or you're not tuned into it. Most of us, I would say the general population or most of humanity has kind of been taken away from that spirit. That's why the problems are in the world. That's why they get led around like sheep to a slaughter. That's why there's no coherent thinking. Everybody's plugged into a little device, keeping them occupied all the time. Their little iPhone or iPod or cell phone or whatever it is, and they're constantly. Do you think they're like really paying attention to environmental situations around them, or even noticing their fellow man, or it's really, really sad, okay? So if anything should come down upon us from either nature or an act of God or an act of irresponsibility from ourselves as people peopling the planet. Oh, and I know you can stand there and say, "Well, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Those guys did it." Yeah, but what did you do to stop those guys from doing it? Did you speak up? Did you act? Because if you didn't, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. How's that? So some of us go on YouTube and some of us write books, and that's the segue into my book, which is Listen to the Wind, Speak from the Heart, an award-winning book about native spirituality, getting through tough situations, Taoism. A lot of stuff that I talk about is in that book by Divine Arts. And I'll put my website down here, nativeamericantaoist.com and spiritofcrazyhorse.com, where you can check that book out. And there's another couple books. Another book I like that I've written is Emergence, about twin souls in the context of a male-female native young, meant to meet, meant to have a mutual destiny as wisdom keepers. I talk a lot about Hopi prophecy and my life, actually, in that book. It's kind of a pattern after my life. So if you're interested in those books, you can go check them out at the websites below. And there's a donation button there if you feel like you want to donate to helping me run this, or be able to do this, or keep myself on the internet so I can do it. That's fine. If you want to donate something, I'd appreciate it, but that's entirely up to you. So anyway, I'll end it now, and I'll just say peace be with you.